Hello once again, this is Pastor Lin from Vietnamese Faith Baptist Church in Dallas, Texas. We're doing another recap video on my latest sermon in Ephesians chapter 4, verses 17 to 32. And in this passage, Paul is doing a couple different things. First, he starts off saying to take off the old self and to put on the new self. And what he means by this is to take off the old self of who we were before we were Christians. We lived a life that just like everybody else who's a non-believer, who's a non-Christian, and we allowed the culture and the values and priorities of the culture and the world to dictate to us how we should live. But he says to take that off and put on the new self. And then the second part of the passage, he talks about what that new self looks like, to do certain things and to avoid doing certain things. For example, to speak words of truth and peace and to build each other up through our words instead of tearing each other down through our words. And to be living peaceful lives and not allowing bitterness and anger and slander and malice to control us, but to live in peace with other people, other believers. So those are the two things that Paul is trying to do in this passage. And in the sermon, I explained those two things, but I also talked about the troubles that Christians have as we read these passages. And by troubles, what I mean is that we read these passages, or a passage like this that describes a non-believer or the non-Christians, and we think to ourselves, well, those aren't my friends at all. The non-believers, the non-Christians in my life aren't like this at all. They're not sinners. They're not darkened in their minds and all this. And a lot of the non-believers in our lives do good works. And so we're very challenged by that as Christians when we read passages like this. So I explained that what Paul is getting at here is that the motivations for doing good is through, as a Christian, it's through our love for God and what God has done for us and the love that God has shown us, especially in the person and works of Christ. And when we say that we're going to do good or that we live a good life as Christians, our standard of goodness is always Jesus Christ and how he lived his life and why he did the things that he did and the things that motivated him. And so the challenge isn't that we aren't good people or that non-Christians aren't good people. The challenge is that the scripture says that none of us are good people. We're all not okay. And Jesus comes to this world and says, y'all are not okay, but I'm okay. And if you have faith in me, then I will give you my righteousness, my holiness. In other words, I will make you okay. The second challenge is that we often take a look at the list of things that we should do and the list of things that we shouldn't do. And we think, if I avoid doing these things and if I strive to do these other things, then that means I'm a good person. This is not what Paul is saying here. What Paul is saying is that we behave in certain ways because of our groundedness in what Christ did, because of our belief, because of our faith in what Christ did. We are grounded in that, and therefore we act and we live a certain way. It's not that we live a certain way in order to achieve the status of being good. Jesus has already given us that status of being good if we put our faith in him, that righteousness, and we live into that, we live up to that. So that was the sermon. It was a little bit complex, but I hope that y'all get the gist of that. And I pray that this video was helpful for you. If it was, please share it with someone. And we hope to see you soon at Faith. Thank you very much, and God bless.